Today, we will conclude our look at Sauron's most evil servant, the Witch King of Angmar. What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Petty Lords. Today, we will conclude our tale on the Witch King in part 2 of this 2-part series. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're digging the art of lore. And with that, here we go. If you're not caught up to date on our story of the Witch King by far, don't forget to check out part 1. As we told in our first video on the Witch King, although his war on Arnor was a success in bringing the once great kingdom down to a small tribe of rangers, his master Sauron is defeated in the War of the Last Alliance at the end of the Second Age, and Isildur, Elendil's son, cuts the One Ring from the Dark Lord's hand, and the Witch King and his race fade into the shadows, awaiting the Dark Lord's return. After the unfolding of these events, Sauron, of course, flees to the east in the area of Rhûn, rather Morgoth-esque with the running if you ask us, and quickly gets to work, gaining followers and gaining his power back to take revenge on the men of the West. Around the year 1980 of the Third Age, approximately 5 years after his defeat in Arnor, the Witch King arrives in Mordor and rejoins the other 8 race. 20 years later, after rejoining the other race, in 2000 of the Third Age, the Witch King and his race take the pass of Tirith Ungol, the same pass that Frodo and Sam and Gollum would use many years later, and the race attacked the city of Minas Ithil. After a 2-year siege, the Witch King is successful in taking the city and quickly establishes the city as his stronghold. It is then renamed Minas Morgul, the Tower of Dark Sorcery. With this unfolding of events, many Gondorians flee the lands of Ithilien and head inland away from the evil city. The Witch King then starts preparations for the war on Gondor. The first thing the Witch King does is capture and secure the Palantir of Minas Ithil and gives it to his master, which Sauron would use in times to come. In 2043, King Eärnil II of Gondor dies. His son Arnor becomes king. It was this prince, now king, who attempted to charge at the Witch King in the end days in the Arnorian Wars, and was mocked and laughed at by the Witch King when his horse swerved in terror to avoid him. The only thing that saved the prince, now king, at the end of that charge was the arrival of Glorfindel from Rivendell. In 2043, when Arnor has ruled as king for a few years, the Witch King renews his challenge of single combat to the king, reminding him of his failure in the north during the Arnorian Wars. The steward of Gondor at the time convinces the king not to accept this challenge. However, 7 years later, the Witch King yet again renews his challenge to the Gondorian king, and he refuses to back down this time. He then rides with a small company of knights to Minas Morgul to accept this third challenge, and none are ever seen again. Before he left, Eärnil placed his crown on his father's tomb in the Houses of the Dead, and there it sat for nearly 1,000 years before Faramir, son of Denethor, the last steward of Gondor, would pick it up for the coronation of King Aragorn Elessar. Now folks, let's hit that fast forward button yet again to the year 3009. It is in this year that the creature Gollum is captured in Mordor. After 8 years of brutal torture, Gollum gives in to Sauron and reveals his knowledge of the One Ring. In 3017, the Nazgul now have a new task from the Dark Lord, to retrieve the ring from Baggins of the Shire. In 3018, Sauron attacks Gondor. There are 2 intentions here. One is to test Gondor's strength, which kind of backfires on the Dark Lord. The second is to make the appearance of the Nazgul part of his war paradigm, rather than a hunt for the One Ring. Later this year, the Witch King and 6 race head across the Anduin River and begin their search. After 2 months of searching though, the Nazgul come up empty-handed and return to the southeast. Messages are brought from Sauron and are sent to the Witch King himself, threatening the race to speed things up. And this year, around the end of July, Sauron learns of Saruman's capture of Gandalf and guesses that Saruman at least knows the location of the ring. The Nazgul now turn towards Isengard. In September of that year, the great eagle Gwaihir rescues Gandalf from Isengard as the Nazgul close in. When the Witch King and the race approach Isengard, Saruman is caught in a pinch. Being both a traitor to the wise and to Sauron, he knows he must find the ring before the Nazgul or come to his end. The Nazgul cannot assail Isengard, for it is too strong even for them. The Witch King makes his demands to Saruman, but only receives a fell voice from the gates of Isengard, stating,
"It is not a land you look for. I know what you seek, though you do not name it. I have it not, as surely its servants would perceive without telling. For if I had it, then you would bow before me and call me Lord. And if I knew where this thing was hid, I should not be here, but long gone before you to take it. There is only one who I guess to have this knowledge, Mithrandir, enemy of Sauron. And since it is but 2 days since he departed from Isengard, seek him nearby."
The next day, upon their departure, the Nazgul come across Grima Wormtongue, an agent of Saruman and poisoner of King Theoden of Rohan, on his way back to Isengard. The Witch King captures and interrogates him, and he reveals the location of the Shire. The Nazgul now have the information they need, and the Witch King spares Grima's life, and they head north. Splitting up, the Nazgul head towards the Shire, continuing their mission. As luck would have it for them, the Witch King captures 2 spies of Saruman that have charts and maps of the Shire. They send the spy to the city of Bree and tell him he no longer works for Saruman, but now for Mordor. Shortly after this event, on September 22nd, the Nazgul drive away the guard of rangers on the border of the Shire. The next day, the Witch King and 4 race continue to chase the rangers away from the area, while Khamul, the second greatest of the Nazgul, and 3 race enter the Shire. After a time searching the Shire, Khamul returns with the information that Frodo has already gone. 2 days later, the 4 hobbits, Frodo Baggins, Samwise Gamgee, Meriadoc Brandybuck, and Peregrine Took, are found and followed by a Nazgul. After a few misadventures, the 4 hobbits make it to Bree safely. After a night of rest and an ill-timed trip by Mr. Baggins that causes the ring to fall onto his finger and he disappears in front of a crowd, the Nazgul are then alerted to his presence. Later in the evening, the 4 hobbits are found and questioned by a ranger named Strider, later to be revealed as Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir to the throne of Gondor. At the end of the night, the Nazgul attack the inn, the prancing pony, and attempt to kill the hobbits. Aragorn, realizing the danger, moves the hobbits before the attack happens, and the Nazgul are back on the trail of the group yet again. Now led by Aragorn, now on their way to Rivendell a few days later, on October 9th, Gandalf the Grey discovers the riders and attempts to follow them. The Witch King realizes this and lets Gandalf slip ahead, and the 9 and Gandalf meet at the old watchtower of Amon Sul, known as Weathertop, and they clash. Frodo and Aragorn see the flashes of light from Weathertop from the Midgewater marshes that they are crossing while Gandalf fights the race. After the battle, Gandalf escapes to the north while being pursued by 4 race, while the Witch King remains behind with another 4. 2 days later, Aragorn and the hobbits arrive to Weathertop and attempt to rest but are attacked by the Nazgul that night, and the Witch King himself stabs Frodo in the shoulder with his Morgul blade. Aragorn then fights off the Nazgul and sends them fleeing into the wild, but the Witch King believes his mission to be complete. His sword, holding dark magic, has the ability to bring its victims into the Wraith world, where the race themselves reside. Aragorn attempts to heal Frodo, to no avail. On the other end of the road, at the last bridge, Comul and 3 race are waiting to ambush Aragorn and the hobbits, but are driven away by the elf lord Glorfindel. Not long after, Glorfindel comes upon the group and Aragorn asks for his aid, but even with all his power, Glorfindel cannot heal Frodo and decides to hurry him to the house of Elrond in Rivendell, where he can be healed. After regrouping, the race pick up the trail of the company and pursue them. They pass Aragorn and Glorfindel and speed towards Frodo, who is atop Glorfindel's horse, speeding towards the elfin refuge. They confront the hobbit at the ford of Brunnen, the river. At this time, Lord Elrond causes the river to rise and rush, and it sweeps the Nazgul away as Frodo falls from the poison. With this turn of events and the ring-bearer safe in Rivendell, the Witch King and his race return to Mordor and prepare to make war on Gondor. Some months later in March, the Witch King and his army are ready for war and march on Minas Tirith. With the Witch King at the head, the garrison at the city of Osgiliath falls, and Faramir and his troops are forced to retreat, and only survive because Gandalf the White rides to their aid and chases the Nazgul and their fell beasts away. On March 14th, the city of Minas Tirith is besieged by the Witch King and his army, and the Battle of Pelennor Fields begins. As the orcs catapult rubble and the heads of dead Gondorian soldiers into the city, the great battering ram Grond is rolled to the main gate of the city. As the Witch King cries out evil spells onto Grond, it shatters the great gate in 3 swings, and the gate is splintered, and the race army is now ready to enter the city. The only one who stands ready at the gate is Gandalf, and he meets the Witch King at the shattered gate of the city. But before the pair can battle, great horns are blown and heard across the fields. Rohan has arrived to the aid of Gondor. Although Sauron tried greatly to keep Rohan out of the battle, he failed, as Theoden King leads a charge directly into the armies of Mordor. The Witch King rides out to meet this new army of horsemen. During this charge, Theoden King personally kills the Southron chieftain and turns to rally his troops. The Witch King then swoops in from the sky on his fell beast and attacks and mortally wounds Theoden when he is thrown with his horse, and his horse Snowmane lands on him, breaking his body. As the Witch King's fell beast moves in for the final kill, a soldier of Rohan, Durnhelm, stands at the ready to defend his king. The Witch King laughs at this soldier, and his beast attacks. Durnhelm dodges this attack and beheads the Witch King's fell beast, and the winged steed falls to the ground dead. The Witch King rises from the fell, great mace in hand, and faces the Rohinian soldier and states to him,
You fool! No living man may hinder the Lord of the Nazgul.
Durnhelm then removes his helmet, revealing his true identity, for it is not Durnhelm, but Theoden's niece, Éowyn. As she reveals herself to the Witch King, he remembers Glorfindel's words that he would not meet his fate by the hands of man, and hold back slightly, but then attacks. After a quick battle, the Witch King connects with his great mace and shatters Éowyn's shield, breaking her arm and causing her to fall. When he moves in for the final kill, Merry, squire of Theoden, companion of Frodo, the hobbit who traveled with Éowyn in secret, springs forward and stabs the Witch King in the leg with his barrow blade that he found in the old forest with his companions, which contains spells that are meant to combat the Witch King. This seriously hurts and injures the Witch King and causes him to fall to his knees and makes him vulnerable to attack. Éowyn, the king's sister-daughter, with her last strength, drives her sword into the king's crown, and the Black Captain is finally defeated, and his spirit fades into the shadow, never to return, after all the ruin, pain, and death caused by this evil king, he is finally no more. What's up again, everybody? Special K here with JK. We just want to thank everyone for watching the conclusion of our two-part video on the Witch King of Angmar. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we would love to hear about your thoughts and views on this evil king of the Nazgul. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are into Arda lore, characters, and more. We can't wait to see you guys for the next video, and remember folks, we are not runic emperors, just petty lords.